Hello, welcome to our podcast. Today we are going to be doing a music fights episode where we debate various music related topics. This is kind of similar to if you've seen Screen Junkies movie fights on YouTube. We're going to be following a similar format. However, it's just me, Ben Detrixhe, and my friend Zach Arnberger. We don't have a judge, so you at home get to be the judge and decide which one of us is right and which one of us is a total idiot. Or maybe we're both idiots.
And Screen Junkies is awesome, so you should go watch them.
Yeah.
Alright, so we have a variety of topics for you all to look forward to, including Best Guitarist, Best Guitar Solo, Best Beatles Song, Best Album, Most Overrated Band or Artist, and Most Overrated Guitarist. Do you think we are ready to launch into the first argument?
Oh, hell yeah.
And does my sick voice sound as shitty as it sounds to me?
Well, I mean, I could tell you're sick, but it's like, it still sounds okay.
Alright, let's do it. So for the first fight, I'll go first on this one. This is the fight for Best Guitarist. My pick is David Gilmour of Pink Floyd, because he has an instantly recognizable guitar tone. He was consistently great. He was good on every Pink Floyd album. He joined the band to replace Syd Barrett, who did a lot of drugs and had a lot of medical problems, and the band got better when he joined. He could also sing. He was a great singer. He was a great songwriter. A David Gilmour song is instantly recognizable because of how amazing his tone is. He had the really iconic black Stratocaster that he played all of his most famous stuff with. He's probably the best. He's the best individual member of a really talented band, and his guitar playing has stood the test of time.
So my pick for Best Guitarist is Jimi Hendrix, which I know will come as a shock, but no, Jimi Hendrix is just an incredibly creative guitarist and is, just constantly was pushing for new sounds and new things that he could do on guitar. I mean, he had incredible improvisational ability. He could play great riffs. He could do amazing things in the studio as well. And probably I would say he probably expanded what people could do with guitar more than any other guitarist, and just blows your mind on so many of his songs. So that's why I'm picking Jimi Hendrix.
Okay, my counters to Jimi Hendrix are: one, Jimi Hendrix was around in the 60s, so a lot of his live performances are kind of inconsistent because he's drunk or high a lot. And two, the main counter to Jimi Hendrix is that how can he be the best guitarist if Stevie Ray Vaughan came along and did Jimi Hendrix better than Jimi Hendrix? Like, I get that Jimi Hendrix was innovative, and he did all of these things that showed us, oh, here's all this cool stuff you could do on a guitar. But people have come around and done that stuff better than he was. So if the question was most innovative guitarist, then it's Jimi Hendrix hands down. But if it's most talented guitarist, then I don't see how you can say it's somebody. I don't see how you can say that it's not David Gilmour, because he can do a lot. He can do a lot of the things that Jimi Hendrix can do. Plus, he can do other things, like he actually is a good singer, not just singing out of necessity. Because, yeah, Hendrix is good on some songs, but a lot of times his voice doesn't really fit what he's doing. Whereas David Gilmour was in a situation where he only had to sing when his voice would absolutely increase what the song was. So it works. Like, David Gilmour's vocals in Comfortably Numb are great. His guitar playing in Comfortably Numb is great. David Gilmour was consistently great on albums and live, whereas Hendrix was great in the studio, but sometimes you didn't know what you were getting live because he could show up drunk or stoned and just ramble through the performance. And yeah, the people in the audience were probably like, yeah, this is fucking great, because they were just as drunk and just as stoned. But if you showed up to that performance sober, you'd be like, what the fuck am I watching? I thought this guy was supposed to be a great guitarist.
Well, one thing, we're debating best guitarist, so I mean, that could encompass a variety of different things. Also, I don't really think that singing affects how good of a guitarist you are. But with Hendrix's live performances, yeah, certainly there were some that were kind of rambly, but even those were brilliant. Like, I mean, Woodstock, that performance is incredible. The band was under-rehearsed. They didn't really gel that well, and he just powers through it on the sheer force of his virtuosity. And then there are live performances that truly are great, like the Band of Gypsies performance, which was his last album that he recorded intended for release in his lifetime. I mean, like the performance of Machine Gun on there, or the performance of Who Knows, like, are incredibly on point and show just what a great live guitarist he could be. Whereas, like, with David Gilmour, the problem with his live performances are they don't really add much that's new and different versus the studio recordings. So, it's like you're going to see Pink Floyd live, and you're like, okay, the spectacle of seeing this is amazing, but musically, it's not really adding anything new other than that it's just feels a lot bigger. And also, like, David Gilmour, his playing, like, his main strength was his tone, but, as far as, like, speed or improvisation or a lot of other aspects, he was kind of, like, mainly going on great tone and fitting the song well, but he didn't have the versatility to fit into as many different situations as Hendrix did.
I mean, okay, but another part of being the best guitarist is, are you the right guitarist for the band that you are in? And David Gilmour was the perfect guitarist for Pink Floyd. His tone perfectly fit their songs. He didn't have to play really fast. He didn't have to do all this virtuoso shit. And I propose that he can do that, because even though the end solo of Comfortably Numb isn't really fast and what you think virtuoso is, you can't listen to that solo and not say, this is a really, I'm too tired to think of a better word, virtuoso performance. So he can do that. He just didn't have to. He didn't have to add a bunch of shit while he was playing live. He could just play the song, because the shit that was on the album was good enough that he didn't have to do a bunch of improvised stuff. People weren't there to see him do a bunch of improvised stuff. People were there to watch Pink Floyd be Pink Floyd. Part of being the best guitarist is perfectly fitting the band that you're in. David Gilmour was the perfect Pink Floyd guitarist. Case closed. Jimi Hendrix. While I agree Jimi Hendrix is the most innovative guitarist of all time, I don't think you can call him the best when other people have come along and done exactly what he did better than he did.
Well, you say other people, there's really only one other person, and that's Stevie Ray Vaughan, and he's only done it with a couple of Jimi Hendrix's songs, like Little Wing and Voodoo Child.
The most notable ones.
And the thing is, like, Stevie Ray Vaughan, like, he was putting his all into doing that. If you have the second best guitarist of all time, in my opinion, putting his all into being better than you on a couple of your songs, that doesn't necessarily mean he's better than you, because if you look at the entirety of Jimi Hendrix's catalog versus the entirety of Stevie Ray Vaughan's catalog, you'll see that Jimmy was doing a lot more impressive stuff on a variety of songs than Stevie Ray Vaughan. And also, like, if I think also being part of being a great guitarist is being influential. And I know Gilmour's influential, but, like, how often do you see people trying to copy David Gilmour versus trying to copy Jimi Hendrix? Like, every time some new virtuoso...
But at this point, it's become almost cliche to copy Jimi Hendrix. Because a lot of the new people that say, oh, my biggest influence is Jimi Hendrix, you don't know if they're telling the truth or if they're just saying that because that's what everybody else says. I know that's a bullshit argument, but I knew to win this one I was going to have to go heel.
Well, let's see, this is a problem with not having a judge, but because neither of us is going to give in on our argument, but yeah, I will say that yeah, there's a lot of people who just say they're copying him for no good reason, but I mean, that's because he is the guy you want to copy, and there are a lot of people also that borrow his licks and his riffs, and that have, you know, tried to cover his songs, and, you know, very few of them can because it's so difficult. But yeah, I mean, if you're talking about influence and innovation, I mean, yeah, I think part of being a great guitarist is being innovative, and he just expanded people's minds of what you can do with guitar, and sounded beautiful doing it. I mean, you listen to something like, you know, Voodoo Child Blues, like that, you know, I mean, he's kind of known in a lot of his songs for having kind of a harsh tone, but like that is really beautiful. And, you know, songs like Angel or Nightbird Flying or something like that, it's like, you know, he could do so many different tones and so many different styles of playing so well.
Okay, well, I will admit that I lost that one, and I'll admit that I should have gone with Stevie Ray Vaughan, because then my argument that Stevie Ray Vaughan did Hendrix better than Hendrix would have carried a lot more weight.
Yeah, probably.
But whatever. I knew I was going to have to go heel.
Yeah, no, you did a really good job arguing that one. I felt like
I went heel.
Yeah.
I feel like a judge would have given you that point, but they probably would have respected my heel turn.
Well, yeah, exactly, because you argued that really well.
Okay, well, it's been decided that Ben won that category, although I am the people's champion for going heel.
Yes.
The next category is Best Guitar Solo, and Ben will go first on this one.
Okay, my choice for this has to do with a couple of guitarists we mentioned in the last round. It's Stevie Ray Vaughan's performance of Little Wing, the Jimi Hendrix song. The original Jimi Hendrix song is like 2.5 minutes long, but Stevie Ray Vaughan expands it into this amazing instrumental piece that's like almost 7 minutes long. And this was actually recorded as part of the Couldn't Stand the Weather sessions, but for whatever reason wasn't released until the album The Sky is Crying, that was put together by Jimmy Vaughan after Stevie Ray Vaughan's untimely death. And this performance has just really beautiful playing, incredible tone, you know, incredible phrasing, great use of dynamics, and the full range of from quiet, soulful playing to loud and bombastic, and has these great emotional swells that just captivate you. And, you know, it's like I said in the last round, I think Stevie Ray Vaughan is the second greatest guitarist of all time, and Jimi Hendrix is the greatest. So it's one great elevating another great's music to its highest potential.
Okay, my pick is We Shall Continue with David Gilmour Boner. Is Comfortably Numb by Pink Floyd, David Gilmour's guitar playing. Now, there are two great solos in that song. The first solo is really good, but I'm picking the last solo, the end solo, because at the end solo, you get about 1.5 minutes of David Gilmour at the height of his, well, I'm going to steal a howl from Screen Junkies, at the height of his powers. It's clean, it's concise, it doesn't seem like there's a misplaced note in there, he knows exactly where he's going, it showcases all of his abilities, it perfectly fits the end feel of that song, where you feel like, because that song is about someone who is passed out, he's a rock star, and his managers have to go pick him up from his, I think it's an apartment, it might be, I'm pretty sure it's his apartment, it might be a hotel room, don't quote me on that, it's been a while since I watched The Wall, and the whole point of the song is that they're shooting him with like this medicine to get him ready to go play the show, and at the end of the song, they're whisking him out the door, and then you hear that solo, and that solo perfectly fits that moment, and it sets you up for what's coming next on the album. And it's the best guitar solo by the best guitarist. And my counter to Stevie Ray Vaughan's Little Wing, I hit on this in the last category. I think part of being the best guitar solo, this is kind of a heel argument, you probably know where I'm going with this, is it has to be totally your own solo. And the problem with picking Stevie Ray Vaughan's Little Wing, it's probably Stevie Ray Vaughan's best interpretation of Hendrix, but I don't think that could be the best solo if he didn't invent that solo. It's probably the best, maybe, collaborative guitar solo, but the way I read this question was the best guitar solo that one person came up with. So therefore, I think that discounts your argument because your thing is another person making something that somebody else did better, whereas my thing is David Gilmour at the height of his David Gilmourness, doing David Gilmour.
Well, yeah, I don't think, I think that would be a valid argument if I'd picked Stevie Ray Vaughan's version of Voodoo Child, because in that he really does borrow a lot of the same phrases and the same beats throughout the solo as Jimi Hendrix used. However, in Little Wing, it really is completely Stevie Ray Vaughan's original solo, because basically all he's stealing from Jimi Hendrix is like the very intro and the chord progressions throughout, and everything else is pretty much Stevie Ray Vaughan just taking that basic structure of the song and creating his whole entire new solo out of it. The problem with Comfortably Numb is, you're right, the notes are perfectly placed. It is a beautiful solo, but it's kind of, it doesn't really grab you, it just...
Bullshit, it doesn't grab you. Bullshit.
Well, see, here, personal opinions, but, you can, listen to that solo, and it flows smoothly with the song, but at the end, you might not realize what you heard, whereas, you can't listen to Stevie Ray Vaughan's Little Wing without that sucking you in, because of just how, all the ups and downs, and, Stevie Ray Vaughan's guitar tone has this certain, it hooks you, it has a little bit more bite to it, I think just the pure smoothness of David Gilmour's guitar, it's just kind of easy to blend into the background if you're not listening closely.
Okay, we're talking about the two of us. We're not talking about the Uphoff Collective. If we were talking about the Uphoff Collective, your argument about how, the guitar just blends into the background of the song would carry weight. It doesn't carry weight here, because bullshit, that solo doesn't grab you. You're just using that as a heel argument.
No, I mean, I literally think that. I mean, it's a truly great solo, but, I mean, yeah,
I could see that for the first solo, because the first solo it flows from the first chorus into the second verse, and yeah, it's really striking, but it just flows with the song. The solo which is the one I'm arguing for, is the last minute and a half of the song. There's a minute and a half more music before the song is over. How can that solo not grab you? It's that solo at the end of the song. It's perfect. There isn't a note out of place. He knew exactly where he was going. Everything is clean. It's the most beautiful you can make a guitar sound.
But that's the thing. It's too clean.
And that was his completely original solo. He didn't have anything else to build off of. Yeah, I get your point that Stevie Ray Vaughan isn't taking that much from Jimi Hendrix, but he had something to build off of to make that solo. David Gilmour did not have that. So two things. I would say, for my money, no pun intended, the best David Gilmour solo is actually the one from Money, because it has that energy that grabs you. It has that biting tone and more energy, but also, if you're trying to use this argument isn't most energetic solo; it's best solo.
Yeah, but if you're trying to use
Comfortably Numb, perfectly encompasses everything that David Gilmour is as a guitarist.
And also, if you're trying to use the argument that Stevie Ray Vaughan's version of Little Wing shouldn't be counted because it builds off a little bit of a Jimi Hendrix performance, then would you say that Godfather can't be the best movie because it builds off Mario Puzo's novel?
That's a different thing, and you are just doing that to be a heel.
Yes.
I appreciate the heeliness of that question, but that's a bullshit line of argument.
But so is yours, and you know it.
Mine isn't nearly as bullshit as that. Mine's at least related to what we're fucking arguing about.
But mine is related to the argument that you made, so there.
It's still bullshit, you know it.
Okay, but I would say it's an effective counter to your argument. So yeah, I don't know where we go from here, because I think we've both laid out our arguments pretty clearly. I mean, I think part of it is just that these solos really speak to us individually, and while we both like the other solo, I don't know if either of us is going to be able to convert the other that their choice is better.
Well, see, the first round I realized what I should have argued, and I went heel, but I didn't go heel enough. This round, I am not giving in that you did better than me. So this one's probably going to be a tie.
Yeah, probably.
Where we're going to need a judge for the next one.
Okay.
Or for the next podcast.
Yeah.
Okay. And that was great. I got to get in an up-off collective day. Okay, so the next category is the best Beatles song. And I went first on this one. And the popular pick for best Beatles song is A Day in the Life. But I didn't pick that. And I have my reasons why later. I went with another song that I think is the Beatles at their most Beatles. And I mean at their most Beatles in the way that they were in the studio. They did really innovative things. They were always trying to do something new. And that is Helter Skelter. Because you could argue that Helter Skelter started a new generation of harder rock music. The Beatles were in the studio. They were doing Beatlesy intoxication things. They were all really high. It took them like 7 or 8 takes to get the song right. The reason why Ringo Starr screams, "I've got blisters on my fingers" at the end of the song is because he actually had blisters on his fingers. That song perfectly encapsulate where it's on the White Album. It perfectly encapsulates the feel of society in the 60s. Its message of violence and paranoia resonated in the environment, sometimes good, sometimes Charles Manson. And it's woefully underrated by Rolling Stone. Rolling Stone only has it at 52. It should be in the top. It should be in the top 5, if not number 1. Rolling Stone totally missed the boat. I'll let you open with your day in the life argument, and then I'll say my counter to it.
Okay. So yeah, I'm going with The Day in the Life, and yes, this is a popular choice, but I honestly believe that it is the best Beatles song. I mean, for some of the same reasons that you mentioned for Helter Skelter, that it shows the kind of the essence of what the Beatles did and what they were able to do. It shows their great songwriting, it shows their great singing, it shows their incredible innovation both as songwriters and in the studio. You have these different parts, with John Lennon's just incredibly whimsical lyrics that fit perfectly, and Paul McCartney's more fun and upbeat part, and these string portions that would seem really out of place if done poorly, but that just fit perfectly into the song. And so what you have here is it showcases kind of the full realization of what the experimentation and innovation of the Beatles meant, but within a song that somehow manages to be completely coherent and beautiful.
Okay, my argument against A Day in the Life. I'll put my cards on the table right now. A Day in the Life is probably my favorite Beatles song, and it was my favorite Beatles song before Rolling Stone anointed it as the best Beatles song. But the problem I have with A Day in the Life now is that it's the sexy pick because it was anointed by Rolling Stone as the best Beatles song. When before that issue of Rolling Stone came out with the 100 best Beatles songs, nobody considered A Day in the Life as the best Beatles song. If you look at the Rolling Stone list for top 500 songs of all time, the highest rated Beatles song on that was Hey Jude. So it's one of those things where A Day in the Life is the sexy pick now, but we have to look at which song has stood the test of time better. God, I feel that whatever. That felt very cliched. Has stood the test of time better. God, at my current level of sickness, I kind of sound like Nick Mundy, but has stood the test of time better, and was more influential. Helter Skelter started pretty much a new generation of harder rock music that led to metal and other stuff like that. Whereas A Day in the Life, while yes, it is a perfectly Beatles song, it wasn't nearly as influential as Helter Skelter was, and it's kind of just the cop out because Rolling Stone anointed it as the best Beatles song of all time now, and that was the first time anybody's really done that, and no one's disputed it. So it's hard to say it's hard to just pick what people consider to be the best Beatles song now, when that opinion will change in 10 years.
Well, yeah, that's true. But yeah, I mean, I didn't pick this song because of the Rolling Stone list. In fact, before you mentioned the Rolling Stone list, I forgot there was a Rolling Stone list of top 100 Beatles songs. But the, and Day in the Life has definitely been influential. I think it's more influential from a perspective of songwriting and what you can do in the studio. I mean, you look at songs like Layla or Paranoid Android, where they seamlessly blended these disparate elements to make a greater sum. And with Helter Skelter, like, my argument against that, twofold. But first, it doesn't, when you think of the Beatles, like, this is a complete departure from their sound in so many ways.
That's like, what it was supposed to be, though. That is what they were going for, and that's what they achieved.
True, but to say that is the greatest Beatles song seems kind of disingenuous. Like, I think to be the greatest song by an artist, I think it has to encompass and encapsulate, like, so the things that artist was known for and loved.
But it does, though, because it encapsulates how creative they were and just how much talent they had and how they weren't hamstrung into doing the same thing over and over again. They could do literally anything that they wanted. Helter Skelter is probably the Beatles at their hardest and their most creative. And it's the Beatles. Yes, it's probably the farthest departure from what you consider to be the Beatles, but I don't think you can knock it down just because of that, because it shows that they could do that. They could literally do anything that they wanted. And no song shows that better than Helter Skelter.
And my counter to the point, because, yeah, I mean, clearly coming out in, what year was it, like 1967?
68, I think. 68 or 67.
Yeah, 68, yeah, I think it was 68. So coming out that year, it was, definitely influential in creating that harder rock sound, but I don't think you could say it started that, because you already had bands like the Yardbirds and Cream and the Rolling Stones, as well as all the blues musicians that had influenced them, like Buddy Guy and Freddie King and Howlin' Wolf and people like that had more of a harder edge sound. And I think that was more what pushed rock in the direction of the Led Zeppelins and the Black Sabbaths and bands like that than just one Beatles song. So yeah, it did show something new that could be done, but it wasn't like it was the prime force pushing music that way. And I think with A Day in the Life, like, because, like, I don't know, I just think with Helter Skelter, you remember a couple of things from it, but A Day in the Life, there are just so many things you remember, like lots of classic lines and the different tunes. Like, I mean, I don't think that the lines, like the lyrics from Helter Skelter, resonate quite the same way as some of the things about he blew his mind out in a car, or I got out of bed, dragged a comb across my head, things like that just really resonate.
Helter Skelter can resonate with anyone because it's a song about paranoia. And anyone who is anxious or anyone who questions anything can hear that song and it will immediately resonate with them because those lyrics are about someone who is paranoid. And just an example of how influential Helter Skelter is, if you go look online, you can find pages of all of the artists that have covered Helter Skelter, because part of being the best song, and this will be my closing argument, part of being the best song is that you have to be able to play it live. Helter Skelter can be played live. It can be covered. A lot of people have covered it. Paul McCartney's been playing it live for years. There's so much going on in a day in the life that you can't really play that song live that well. So if this was best Beatles studio creation, then I don't see how you can argue against A Day in the Life, because the only thing that could maybe touch that is Tomorrow Never Knows. But this is best Beatles song, and in my opinion, to be the best Beatles song, it not only has to be great on the album, but you have to be able to play it live. And Helter Skelter sounds just as good live as it does on the album. You can't play A Day in the Life live because there's way too much going on.
Well, if we're arguing like best guitar solo or something like that, like I think, like that is something, or best guitarist, like that's something that's more important for it to translate live. Whereas with best song, it's just dependent on the listening experience. And, so many of the Beatles' great works were done after they put a moratorium on their touring and just went into the studio and allowed their creativity to explode. Also, yeah, I thought that A Day in the Life maybe would be too hard to play live, but it has been done. You can't play it the same way that it was done in the studio, but like I recently heard a live version by Jeff Beck that, he takes it, makes an instrumental, makes it a lot simpler, but in doing that, he highlights just how brilliant that melody is by doing it in a simple guitar or instrumental format. And, the problem with Helter Skelter is, it's a little bit, it's got that hard sound, that paranoid sound, but it is a little more muddy and incoherent in some ways, whereas I think just the pureness and beauty of the melody in A Day in the Life comes through in ways that you don't realize until you hear kind of a stripped down version like that.
Okay, well, I'm also not budging on this one.
Okay, me neither.
I mean, I feel like you took the sexy pick and you had the easier fight. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, I feel like this one's kind of a tie again.
Oh, but I have you nailed on this next one. Go ahead.
Okay.
You get a start.
So the next one is Best Album, and so I don't think we've talked about this band called Pink Floyd yet. And yeah, so my pick for the best album is Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon. And, of course, there's not only does it have great music, but God, look at that album cover. That is a beautiful album cover. But this song has some of Pink Floyd's best songs. It's got Money, it's got Time, Brain Damage, Us and Them, and it has such a great flow to it. It's the beginning of, I think, the most classic sounding Pink Floyd, with David Gilmour's guitar, and his vocals, Roger Waters' vocals, are incredible on this. The synthesizer, the backing vocals, just every element of this album is perfectly realized. It's really stood the test of time and sounds just as fresh and exciting today as it did back then.
Okay, well, in a turn of events that may surprise quite a few people, my pick is also a Pink Floyd album. My pick is The Wall. Now, my pick being The Wall, The Who had tried a progressive concept album with Tommy. It didn't really, like, there's some good stuff on there, it didn't really work. When The Wall came out, The Wall is the concept album that everyone looks at. If that's how you make a perfect concept album. The Wall tells the story of this guy named Pink from his boyhood to the end of the album, like through his career, like through his successful rock star career, through his breakdown to the end, where the ending is left very ambiguous, which is one of my favorite parts of the album, is that the ending is very ambiguous. I'll get to that later. It flows really well as an album. There aren't any songs on that album that you would ever want to skip, which is kind of surprising considering that there's like 25, it's probably more than that, there's like 24, 25 songs on the album, and some of them are kind of short, but each song tells its part of the story. Each song is great. It has a lot of Pink Floyd's best songs, like Another Brick in the Wall, Mother, Comfortably Numb, my personal favorite, The Trial. And I think it's had a little bit more of an influence than Dark Side of the Moon. Plus, you said the Dark Side of the Moon was the beginning of the classic Pink Floyd. The Wall was the classic Pink Floyd sound at its best. So my argument against the Dark Side of the Moon is it can't be this is a bullshit argument, but I don't care. It can't be the best album of all time if it's not even the best album by that band. The Wall is a better album than Dark Side of the Moon. Dark Side of the Moon is a great album. I'll give you that. It was in the charts for like some ridiculous number of consecutive weeks. That's all fine and dandy. The Wall doesn't really have any bad songs on it. The Dark Side of the Moon has some songs that are very subpar. Like Run to Me isn't very good, or I think it's called Run to Me. It's the second song on the album. Isn't very good. The opening song on the album, which is called Breathe, isn't great. Great Gig in the Sky isn't great. So yes, the Dark Side of the Moon has some really high highs on there. It does. I will admit that there are really good songs on Dark Side of the Moon. Brain Damage and Eclipse together are like my favorite Pink Floyd song combo. But the Dark Side of the Moon is drugged down by the bad songs, whereas The Wall doesn't have any standout really bad songs to drag it down. It is Pink Floyd at their best. It's David Gilmour at his best. It's Roger Waters at his most creative. It is everything that you think of when you think Pink Floyd.
Okay, so I don't know how you can say that songs like Breathe and On the Run are bad songs. I mean, sure, they might not have the same power as like Money or Brain Damage, but they're still really good songs and they still fit the flow of the album. And those are albums that those are songs that you can recall in your head because they're distinctive and just sound great, showing off the the best of what like David Gilmour and Richard Wright and all those can do. The thing about The Wall is if you're arguing best concept album, it's like head and shoulders, knees and toes above any other contender. If you're arguing like most quintessentially Pink Floyd album, sure, but the problem with a concept album like this is that you have to really, it takes effort to get into it, and while that effort may be worth it, it's just not as easy. Like, I think to be the best album, it has to be something that you can put on and listen to in a variety of situations rather than having to put on and really concentrate to get through. And, if you don't buy into the aspect of the concept album, there are a lot of songs on here that you'd want to skip. I mean, honestly, like Another Brick in the Wall is amazing. The Comfortably Numb is amazing. There's several other songs that are really good, but I mean, you're varying.
Okay, Name 2 songs you'd want to skip. If you're going to use this line of reasoning, name 2 songs you would want to skip.
Okay.
Because...
Well, gosh, so many of these I don't even remember because they're really, really not that memorable unless you've listened to the album a lot of times. But how about Bring the Boys Back Home? Why do you need to listen to that? Honestly,
because it sets up Comfortably Numb. It's part of his fever dream that he's having when they go into Comfortably Numb. It tells the story.
But this is an album, not a movie. If I want to watch a movie, I'll watch a movie.
Shut your damn mouth. It's my argument time now. The point of the wall, discounting the wall, because you have to concentrate to get into it. You have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this. It's like discounting The Godfather because it's 3 hours long and there aren't any fucking jokes in it. If you can't sit down and appreciate the wall for what it is, you're not a true music fan, and your opinion doesn't fucking matter.
Ooh, highbrow argument there. No, I'm just saying...
I'm going elitist, damn it!
I'm just saying, the thing about The Dark Side of the Moon is... if you sit down and you really listen to it closely, you pay attention to all the instrumentation, all the lyrics, it is a very rewarding experience.
So is the wall. The wall is a more rewarding
yeah, I know.
Let
me finish. Not
only do you have all of that, it also
I'm
takes
setting up.
Great story.
I'm setting up the rest of my. So you've got that, but if you just throw it on in your car, you can still get a lot out of it. Regardless of how closely you're listening, you can have a variety of different listening experiences. The problem with the wall is there's only really one listening experience you can have with it, which is to listen to it very closely, because if you try and listen to it in the background, you're just going to have a bunch of stuff that, is like Roger Waters plaintively crying in a kind of annoying way that just kind of doesn't make any sense unless you're really closely listening to it and you're just kind of waiting for another brick in the wall to come around, or for Hey You or Young Lust to come around. And so if there's only one way you can truly enjoy the album, I think that's not as valuable as if you can enjoy the album in a multitude of different ways.
See, you keep coming back to this point of there's only one way you can enjoy the wall. You have to sit there and you have to listen to it really closely. I don't think that's true. You can put the wall on in the car. You can pick up the story where you are. You'll know where you are, and you'll know, oh, okay, they're about to go into this bit of the story. The whole point of this is, I don't think it's fair to argue that there's only one listening experience for the wall, because you don't have to sit there and listen to it really closely. You can do that, or if you wanted to, you could make a playlist that just has the hits from the wall, and you could do that. Or if you were going on a long car trip, you can put the wall on in the car, and you can listen to the story, and then you can. It's almost like they're playing out a book for you. Now, to go back to the ending of the wall, because I didn't get to go to this because I was shooting down your bullshit argument about how there's only one listening experience, which is wrong. The best part of the wall is that the ending is ambiguous. At the end of the wall, after the trial, Pink is you're left to think of two things. Either Pink has overcome his anxiety, he's overcome his problems, and he's become a better person, or it beat him and he killed himself. The fact that they had the balls to do that, and they pulled it off so well, shows that the wall is the best album, because it's the perfect concept album. It has a lot of great songs on it. It tells a really good story. It's really innovative. It's really interesting, and it stands up well now. Whereas Dark Side of the Moon, yeah, okay, Breathe is probably a better song than I give it credit for. I refuse to accept it On the Road as a good song because it's 3 minutes of the same fucking shit happening with some random shit in the background. And The Great Gig in the Sky is 4 minutes of some random fucking shit happening with some annoyingly high vocals in the background.
They sound great.
No, they don't. So, I agree that Dark Side of the Moon is one of the best albums ever, but The Wall is better. The Wall will always be better. If you ask any person on the street, if you ask any 5 people on the street to name a Pink Floyd album,
they'll say Dark Side of the Moon because they'll be really ignorant and won't know The Wall.
The Wall is Dark Side of the Moon. Just as many are going to say The Wall is Dark Side of the Moon.
No, because they don't know about The Wall.
And you also use the album art of Dark Side of the Moon as part of your argument. That's bullshit. The album art of The Wall doesn't have to be the ridiculous, fancy Dark Side of the Moon bullshit. It can just be Pink Floyd The Wall on a layer of bricks. Your argument is bullshit.
Okay.
Dark Side of the Moon can't be the best album if it's not even the best album by that band.
Okay, that argument was pretty lengthy, but I will go with a couple. I will have to introduce a couple of Healy points before we go on. So, why should we care about the story of The Wall, and also the trial isn't very good? And how can you relate to being a rock star? Like, that's not a relatable story.
It's not being a rock star. It's not relating to being a rock star. It's relating to being a person who is socially isolated from the stuff around you. So Pink specifically is a rock star, but that album is about social isolation. So if you felt that social isolation before, you will fucking relate to that album. Saying that, well, not everyone can relate to a rock star is missing the whole point. The point isn't that Pink is a rock star. The point is that no matter what Pink does, he can't be happy with his life because he feels that social isolation.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, obviously this is a very personal argument. Like, for me, I don't know. Like, the story just kind of leaves me weak. Like, if I want a story, I'm going to watch a movie. If I want music, I'm going to listen to an album. And, you know, honestly, like, my other Healy point is, I know you love The Trial. I don't care for that song, but I'm not going to argue with it. I'm going to concede this because this is the point that I care least on, and I think you've argued this very well.
All right. And fuck you for not liking The Trial.
I mean, it's like, it's got all this medieval circusy stuff. I don't like. I don't like when rock does that. It's, ugh. But I will admit that I can still enjoy The Trial even though I don't like it. So that
you are beach.
That
okay, well, whatever. I'm on that point.
Yeah. All right. So now, let's see, what do we got next?
Most underrated.
Yeah, most underrated band or artist. All right.
And this is probably also going to be a tie because you picked a blues musician and I picked the Libertines. So, the Libertines are this British band that formed in the early 2000s. They have kind of a punk rock feel, but they can do more than just the typical punk rock stuff. So it's not one of those things where, like, I don't really like punk rock that much because it's like I don't like the Clash, I don't like the Ramones, I don't like bands like that. But where the Libertines grab you is that they have the punk aesthetic, but they're not quite that. Like, they can do so much more than just that, and they actually are very talented musicians. They've released 3 great albums. They have a lot of talent. Their 2 main guys, Pete Doherty and Carl Barrett, are so talented that they've had lots of success in other groups. They're still just as popular in the UK as they were when they broke up in 2004, to the point that the Anthems for Doomed Youth, their 3rd album that they released 10 years after the Libertines, their 2nd album, was still hugely popular because they're one of those bands where I guess the main argument against them is that they didn't quite live up to their potential because of drugs and shit. But a lot of bands didn't live up to their potential because of drugs and shit. So at this point, you could point to a lot of bands like Cream or other things of like they had lots of potential, they didn't live up to it. I think the Libertines are underrated because most people in America have no idea who they are, and they've released a lot of great music that, if it got a wide following here, would be very popular, but it just never got the following.
Okay, so yeah, I think both of the artists that we chose are very different, and both deserve to be heard a lot more. My choice is Ronnie Earl, um, and most of you listening who aren't specifically blues fans will be like, "Who?" And that's yeah, he's underrated. Ronnie Earl is a blues guitarist from the Northeast. He was part of Roomful of Blues early on, and they're a band that was kind of a R&B revival type thing. And then he left to become his own uh, solo act, and has released lots and lots of albums over the 80s, 90s, 2000s through this day. His guitar playing is, he's gotten recognition in the blues community. He's been nominated for like 20 Guitarist of the Year awards at the Blues Music Awards, which is like more than any other artist, and this is a field that includes Buddy Guy. But he has very little recognition outside the blues community. His guitar playing, he has beautiful tone. He can play blues, rock, jazz, any different style. The soulfulness of his style. I mean, you're looking at like kind of a, someone who, I'm not saying like he should be like on mainstream radio, like top of the charts type stuff, but I'm saying like this is a guy who should be on people's lists of the 100 greatest guitarists of all time. This should be a guy who's playing like Austin City Limits and places like that. I mean, part of the reason he's not is because he's had issues with his health and with depression and earlier with drugs, but this is a guy who should be on people's radars as one of the greatest guitarists of all time, and he just does not get that credit.
Okay, well, I'm going to make an executive decision that I feel like this one is going to end up being a tie regardless, and I feel like the last argument will be a lot more fun. So do you just want to call this one a tie and move to the last argument?
Yeah.
Because my argument in support of the Libertines is literally exactly what you said for Ronnie Earl, because they are pretty much the same thing for what they are in their scene. Like, the Libertines are hugely popular in the UK. No one knows who they are here. If people knew who they were, they could be considered as one of, I don't know if one of the great bands of all time, but one of the great bands of their era, and people have no fucking idea who they are.
Yeah, and basically all I was going to be able to counter you with was like stats on how, how the greater sales and streams and stuff of the Libertines. I wasn't going to be able to make any good musical points because our artists are just so different.
And I wasn't going to be able to make. I'm not going to lie. I planned to do that before we even started because I had no idea how I was going to counter that.
All right, sounds good. All right, so go listen to the Libertines, go listen to Ronnie Earl, and then like just go on like Spotify or whatever and loop their music while you do something else or while you listen to it, either one.
Okay, so we've come to our last category, which I kind of want this to be the last category regardless of what happens because my throat hurts and I don't want to do like some kind of tiebreaker.
Well, yeah, I mean, we haven't really been keeping good enough score to do a tiebreaker, but this one should be a fun one.
Well, it's 1-1 with 3 ties. So, the last category is most overrated guitarist.
Okay.
You get to go first.
Okay, so, it does not pain me to choose this guitarist because I don't think he's very good, but the most overrated guitarist, in my opinion, is Johnny Ramone of the Ramones. This guy has been held up as an innovator in punk rock, which is a style of music that's built on a lack of innovation, and And boy, is he...
Okay, that line was kind of like the TIE Fighters or the Honda Civics of Star Wars.
And boy, is he one of the least innovative major guys in punk rock. So, yeah, like, I just love one of the DJs on the Sound, one of the LA rock stations said, like, the Ramones, like, if you just take 20 seconds any of their songs and loop it, you won't know the difference because they're so repetitive. I mean, he's basically just doing bar chords and downstrokes. He refused to do solos. Like, that's a choice you can make. That's fine, but you should not be held up as a great guitarist if all you're doing is just this really simplistic stuff. And he's like, if you want to hold up a guitarist who is great as, like, he's rated number 28 on the Rolling Stone list of greatest guitarists of all time, and in the earlier version that was done by not by a panel but just by one Rolling Stone writer, David Fricke, he was all the way up at number 16 because David Fricke had a huge punk boner. But yeah, if you want to hold up someone who does punk rock who's like more interesting or innovative, like, why don't you do like Mick Jones of the Clash, or Robert Quine of the Voidoids, or Joey Santiago of the Pixies, or like Johnny Marr of the Smiths, or someone like that. Like,
yeah, go Johnny Marr.
Yeah, like these guys do interesting, innovative stuff. Like, if you're trying to listen for anything interesting in Johnny Ramone's music, like, you're not gonna find it.
Okay, so based on that argument, my pick was going to be Slash because he only has like 2 or 3 moves, and he's good at his moves, but all of his solos and riffs sound exactly the same. But because of your Johnny Ramone argument, I'm going to have to freeball this one. I'm going to have to go with what my second choice was. My second choice is probably less innovative than Johnny Ramone, and he's held up as a great guitarist because of the band that he was in. Would you like to inform the audience who I'm going to pick?
The Edge.
The Edge from U2.
Who is also my second choice.
The problem with The Edge, and yes, I think Slash might actually be more overrated because he didn't really do anything that was innovative or that creative. Like, he was just doing a lot of stuff that people before him had done. Like, Slash was trying to be Jimmy Page, but was not even 50% of Jimmy Page. But if you're gonna pull out the Johnny Ramone guns, The Edge, almost every U2 song, Edge's guitar playing is like 2 or 3 notes, and it never changes. He also doesn't solo. He was on at Mike It Loud with Jimmy Page and Jack White, and he didn't fucking belong there, and you could tell he didn't belong there, and you could tell halfway through that he realized he didn't belong there, and he was really nervous every time they were actually playing guitar, like, oh fuck, I don't know what I'm doing, and these guys are gonna make me look really bad. He was never that creative. He never tried to be that creative. He was never very talented. He always falls back to the same couple of things. Like, yeah, his style worked for early U2 stuff. Like, the couple of chords works in Sunday Bloody Sunday, it works in New Year's Day, it works in songs like that. But part of the reason U2 hasn't had that good of staying power is that The Edge is not creative at all. So when he ran out of shit, the band, it really drug the band down. Whereas the Ramones, Johnny Ramone never had to do anything more than what he did, because the Ramones were always going to be the same thing. And yes, I agree, Johnny Ramone was not that talented. He did basically invent punk rock guitar, or he started punk rock guitar, even though he's probably really shitty at it. He, was the first one to do it, I guess. His style fit what his band was doing, and he didn't have to do anything else. Whereas The Edge, so Johnny Ramone did not hold back the Ramones the way that The Edge held back U2.
Well, I don't know that you can really say the Edge held back U2. I mean, the whole band held themselves back. But I do agree with most of your points against the Edge.
It's hard to argue that the whole band held back U2 when U2 was as good as they were in the 80s.
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, they wouldn't be the first or the last pop band without anything that interesting going on in the guitar department. I mean, like, the what's his name, Alex Summers, I think, of the Police, is also held up as a great guitarist when he like hardly did anything. But or is it Andy Summers? I can't. Yeah, I think it's Andy Summers. But anyway, so I agree with your points against the Edge pretty much. Because he is vastly overrated. He was also number 38 on Rolling Stone's list of top 100 guitarists. So not quite as high as Johnny Ramone, but still like way higher than he had any business being. Probably neither deserved to be on the list at all. Definitely Johnny Ramone didn't, and I don't think the Edge did either.
That's why I changed my pick, because I think the Slash being at 65. I just called him the Slash because I was thinking about the Edge. Slash should be in like the 80s or 90s, and he's up as high as 65. Whereas the Edge and Johnny Ramone do not deserve to be on that list, and they are both higher than Slash.
Yeah.
So while I personally feel like Slash is more overrated because he just does the same thing over and over again, he at least has a hell of a lot more talent than either one of these even could dream of having.
Yeah, like, so at least with the difference between Johnny Ramone and the Edge, though, is like with Johnny Ramone, you kind of remember the riff from Blitzkrieg Bop, and then like there is literally nothing else that he did that is even remotely memorable. At least with the Edge, even though his playing was built on doing the same thing over and over again throughout the songs, he at least did different things in different songs. So you can have like some a pretty interesting guitar part in Mysterious Ways. You can have a pretty cool guitar part in Sunday Bloody Sunday. Like, even though it's really overrated, the guitar in Where the Streets Have No Name is still really cool and was still innovative. And so you at least have some variety between songs, even if there isn't much variety within songs. Whereas with Johnny Ramone, like you could plug in literally anything he did anywhere, and you wouldn't even know the difference.
Okay, my final point is yes, you get some variety in between songs, but part of being the most overrated guitarist is where you are ranked compared to what talent you have. And we don't know. Johnny Ramone might have been a more talented guitarist than the Edge. He just refused to ever show that. He might have been able to solo, and we just didn't know. The Edge is probably the least talented guitarist ever in a popular band. Like, yes, he could do some cool stuff with the different way that he played his two notes, but it was always 2 or 3 notes in the entire song. Like, so yeah, he could maybe make those 2 or 3 notes sound cool, but his lack of talent really shows through on some songs where you say to yourself, that'd be so much cooler if it had more than like 2 notes. And you also missed the one thing that probably would have knocked me down the easiest, was that probably the best Edge guitar isn't bad, because that's when he's actually trying some things and he's being creative with what he's doing. It's still like 2 or 3 notes, but it fits that song really perfectly. The problem with picking between one of these as to who is more overrated is we have picked the 2 that are the best pick for who is more overrated, and we've made all of the arguments for why ours is overrated, and the arguments for why the other one is more overrated than the other one are kind of hard.
Yeah, I do have 2 points to counter from what you said, though. One is, if you're saying where they're, well, I guess they kind of tie together because your points tied together. But if you're looking at how talented they are versus where they're ranked, I mean, if you're going on Rolling Stone, which is like an imperfect source, but it's the most widely cited one, Johnny Ramone is ranked higher for whatever asinine reason. And then Also, like, if you're saying that we don't know how good Johnny Ramone is because he refused to show it, that's like, if you don't show how good you are, then we can only go by what you showed us, and there is absolutely no evidence that he was better than what he played. Like, can you imagine?
There's no evidence that the Edge was better than what he played.
Well, no, exactly. But like, if you look at just what they played next to each other, think of this: can you imagine Johnny Ramone trying to play the riff from Where the Streets Have No Name? Like, it took the Edge a really long time to write and perfect that riff, and like a better guitarist probably could have done it much more quickly. Like Clapton probably could have done it in a couple weeks. I think it took the Edge like forever to get it right. But could you imagine Johnny Ramone even trying to play that riff?
Can you imagine the Edge even trying to play the riff from Blitzkrieg Bop? He wouldn't be able to because his hand would have to move too fast.
Well, but he could probably still do it because, like, pretty much all you need to do is have a really fuzzy sound and play really fast, and have long hair and look angry while you do it.
I think the riff you might be talking about. Are you talking about the riff they talked about in Might Get Loud?
Well, I remember specifically. I Wikipedia'd the Where the Streets Have No Name one day when I was like randomly. I was like randomly listening to stuff on Spotify at work, and like that came up, so I Wikipedia'd it, and there was like a whole story about like how hard it was for him to play it, and it's like, yeah, that riff is more complex than you give it credit for, but you know, I don't know, it's still the same thing through the entire song, so.
I'm really glad I didn't go with Slash because I definitely would have lost. I mean, I'm not going to concede that I lost, even though I think a judge would have given that point to you. I'm not going to concede that I lost.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Mostly because I completely freeballed my argument once I realized I couldn't go with Slash.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think I totally would have got you if you picked Slash, but with the Edge, it's like I still think Johnny Ramone is more overrated, but like the Edge was my second choice. Like nobody is more overrated than those two because they are so high on the list and have no business being there.
Yeah, and personally, I still think Slash is the most overrated because he didn't bring anything new to the table, but I think way more talent than either one of them.
I think
so. He actually deserved his place on the list. He was too high on the list, but he deserved to be on the list.
Yeah, and I think
the Edge did not deserve to be on the list at all.
I think Ramone and the Edge are the most critically overrated. Like I think Slash is like in the right neighborhood on like the Rolling Stones list, but I think where he's really overrated is by fanboys.
That's true. That's probably true because a lot of fanboys put Slash on this ridiculous pedestal.
Yeah, and it's like we said in an earlier discussion, like he got the most out of his talent. Like what he got out of his talent was really impressive based on the talent he had, and he has a lot of great stuff to show for it, but like he was not going any farther with the talent that he had than he did.
Yeah, I feel like I could have won that best guitarist argument if I would have picked Stevie Ray Vaughan, because then my Stevie Ray Vaughan was better Hendrix arguments would have actually held some weight.
Uh-huh.
I don't know.
Yeah, that would have been really close. Yeah, I don't know.
And I feel like your best chance to win best album would have been to pick a non-Pink Floyd album once you knew I was going for the wall.
Yeah. But that's the thing, it's either Pink Floyd or the Beatles if you're trying to pick best album of all time, and I was like, yeah, I think it's going to be either Dark Side of the Moon or The Wall, so there we go.
And I think that was close, but I think if this was on Movie Fights, I would have gotten that one just for how passionate I was.
Well, exactly, and that's why that's the main reason I conceded, was because you had the most passion, whereas like I agree with the arguments that I personally made, and I think a lot of your arguments were very personal, but because you were really passionate about yours and I wasn't that passionate, and that was the argument I was least passionate about in the entire episode, like, yeah, I just had to concede to you.
Yay, go the wall.
Yeah. So what do you think? So, like, you know how in movie fights, like, they usually have like a thumbnail based on like what the best argument was. Like, what would you go with for this episode?
Probably best album.
Yeah. So,
and I'm not only saying that because I won. I'm saying that because that was the longest and the most passionate.
Yeah.
I mean, most overrated guitarist was fun, but I don't like putting just the last one as the one that it is, because then you're like, well, when is this argument? Oh, I have to wait an hour for this? Fuck.
Yeah, I think that was the most fun argument, but like the most passionate was your defense of the wall.
I mean, and to be perfectly honest, I'm gonna play my cards on the table right now. The Wall is not my favorite album of all time, but I knew it was the one that I could defend the best.
Right.
So I went with it because of that. Because my favorite album of all time is probably just some random thing that I would not have been able to defend against whatever you picked.
Well, yeah, exactly. And if I went for my favorite album of all time, the same thing would happen. I mean,
what would your pick for favorite album have been if you were going for favorite, not best?
Well, Stevie Ray Vaughan live at Montreux, 1982 and 1985.
I don't even know what I would have picked for favorite album. I mean, you could probably cut the episode off, and then we could do the rest of this in a phone call post-mortem while I think about this.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, so that was the end of our first episode.
Yeah, that actually turned out pretty well, I think. Hopefully, I don't know. It was fun anyway.
we need to get a judge.
Yeah.
Okay, well, yeah, we're going to continue to unprofessionally sign off, mostly because